Hello everyone, welcome to So Janelle. I'm your host Janelle So. We've had a very busy month of May, so many things going on. We had the Asian and Pacific Islander American Heritage Month, which we commemorated here on the show with some segments, especially talking about xenophobia and anti-Asian sentiment. This is not going to be the last time that we're hearing and going to be talking about that, because we're getting numbers that hate crimes against Asians are still rising. We're going to continue to tackle that here on the show. Also, we celebrated Mother's Day, and we also celebrated International Day and Week of Nurses, providing critical care as last line of defense as we fight this global pandemic. So salute to all our nurses, to all our healthcare professionals. Thank you so much for your service and dedication. Another thing that's happening in May is Mental Health Awareness Month, which is also very important, especially these days when we are talking about the new normal, getting cooped up at home, going stir crazy as we shelter in place, and also a lot of anxiety as the numbers rise in terms of people getting furloughed, people getting pay cuts, or much worse, people that are losing their jobs to this global pandemic. And so today we're going to be devoting our full show with helpful tools for all of you in order to be able to cope during these hard times. Joining us this afternoon on the show is Cara Morales, a licensed marriage and family therapist and licensed professional clinical counselor. She has a Master of Arts in Clinical Psychology with an emphasis in marriage and family therapy from Azusa Pacific University here in California. She has a lot of advice for us. Cara, hello and welcome to So Janelle.
Hi Janelle, thank you for having me.
Thank you for agreeing to join us for this full show special. I know that we're going to get a lot from you today, so let's get down to the basics. What can one do in order to take care of his or her own mental health during this time?
As I was reflecting on that, I thought mental health is important in general for really us to experience life and have meaningful relationships. And in this time of pandemic where we're quarantined, we're stuck at home, it's even trickier to really take care of our mental health. And so a couple tips that I think are really helpful, both outside of quarantine, but especially in quarantine, are as follows. So one, I think you want to develop a good set of coping skills. And what I mean by that is each one of us, we get upset, right? We might get sad, we might get angry, we might get anxious. We need a way to calm ourselves down when our emotions get out of control, when they feel really big. And that's what coping skills are. They're a set of skills where we're trying to cope with our emotion. Sometimes coping skills can also fix a problem that we're having, but more importantly, it's about really containing that emotion and calming ourselves down so that then we can approach a problem-solving technique. For some people, reading a book would be a coping skill, whereas for other people, they don't enjoy reading. Watching TV, funny movies, magazines. It could be something like knitting. It could be exercise. It could be taking a warm bath or a hot shower. Really, it's going to be an enjoyable activity that will help, like I said, calm down those big emotions that you're feeling.
But I want you to comment on some of those coping skills that may not be as healthy. Eating ice cream, eating too much, binging in front of the TV.
And I love that you're bringing this up, because I think with coping skills, you can almost have too much of a good thing sometimes. So you want to have balance, that if you are going to watch TV, don't watch it for 10 hours a day, or if you are going to have some ice cream, have a little bit, not a ton.
I want to emphasize people that are also quarantining by themselves with really like a lack of other human interaction. How bad is that, and what can they do?
I definitely think coping skills, for those that are quarantined alone, they're going to need to get a longer list. I've seen a lot of articles about developing new hobbies during this time, taking up cooking, that those can develop into coping skills as well. Another big important coping skill is having a strong support system. which I think is really difficult to do if you are quarantined by yourself. Which would actually be my second tip in general is you want to stay connected. Yes, if you're quarantined with people in your home, that's a lot easier. So for those people, those individuals that maybe are stuck by themselves, to find creative ways to stay connected. I think there's lots of options with technology, Zoom calls, FaceTimes. I've even seen on social media, there's been different challenges. Can you do 10 push-ups? Can you show your cutest dog? All those things, while they might seem small, they make us feel connected. They make us feel a part of something bigger than just ourselves in our homes. So we want to really find those creative ways to stay connected to those that we love and even our larger community.
And your third, is there a third?
I think it's so important during this time of quarantine to stay informed. We're kind of bombarded with all sorts of news stories and what is this state doing? What is California doing? It's important to stay informed, but it's really important also to not lose hope. I think it's really easy to let our emotions, our anxieties, our sadness get the best of us. And we believe then that this is never going to end. I'm going to be like this forever. And yes, we need to talk about what our new normal will look like, but also hold hope that there will be a new normal, that at some point stores will reopen and we'll be able to see our loved ones. Hopefully there'll be a return to school for our children, but that there is hope that this won't last forever, that there are going to be advances in the medical field in regards to vaccines and testings, so that one day we can leave our homes and enjoy our community at large.
And we're just getting started here on the show. Cara is joining us with her 15 years of experience doing work with adolescents, with families, different styles of psychology. Cara, we're hearing that there's a lot of family issues now that are cropping up because couples are going stir crazy with each other, starting to get on each other's nerves, being quarantined together. We'll be back with helpful tools about that when we return on the show. Don't go away.
The coronavirus pandemic has forced everyone to consider ways they can squeeze more out of their budget. It'd still be so easy to get through this uncertain time, though, if you consider some of these simple ideas. Go online to a local library. You can save significantly by renting a book or even a movie. Libraries also host free events, seminars, and even educational classes, even online. Identify what impacts your budget the most. For many, it's food. Consider purchasing only essentials or avoid premium grocery stores. Discount shopping can be a trap too, and that is equally true now with virtually all shopping being done online. Whether it's cable or online subscriptions, cut extra bills you don't need. Also, see if some of the services you use will pause payments if they are closed or unavailable, such as the gym. Increase your disposable income by paying off high-interest credit cards. It can be stressful to have to look for ways to tighten your budget, but it is possible to make some simple adjustments that will still allow you to be comfortable.
Thank you so much for spending time with us here on So Janelle, where I have been saying from the time we started producing shows that will help you guys cope during this time of a global pandemic. We are working so hard to gather accurate information, reliable news, as well as helpful tools in order to help us survive and maybe even thrive during this time of COVID-19. Joining us this afternoon on the show as we shed a spotlight on mental health, because May is Mental Health Awareness Month, is Cara. Cara, you met her earlier on the program giving us tips on how to take care of our personal, individual mental health. At this time, Cara is joining us, like I said earlier, with 15 years or more than 15 years of experience dealing with adolescents, high school students, and families as well, and couples. And speaking of couples, Cara, that's our next topic on the show right now. What's better, to be quarantined by yourself or to be quarantined with someone else, or say even children?
You know, I've been asked this question a lot lately. And I really go back and forth, but I think that being quarantined alone is more challenging than being quarantined with a spouse, a partner, or your family. When we're with people, we have opportunity to build relationships, share laughter, and to have moments of connection. Where if you're alone, you don't have those opportunities unless it's done virtually. So I definitely think being alone is going to be the more challenging situation at this time.
And we already shared tips on how to do that earlier on the program. If you missed any of it, catch us online on YouTube, www.youtube.com/sojanelle. Cara, top 3 mental health tips now for couples who are struggling. I know that being coupled during quarantine also has its own set of problems and issues.
I think that one pitfall we can fall into as couples is that our relationship, the longer it goes on, can be more of a transaction less than being in a relationship. And what I mean by that is it's very easy to fall into conversations that center around, did you take the trash out? What are we going to eat for dinner? Who has paid the gas bill? And while those are important conversations to have, it shouldn't be the only points of connection we have with our partner or our spouse. So in this time of quarantine, when together for a lot of time, take advantage to spend relational time with each other and be intentional about that. You want to have, if you can, date nights, or you want to play board games, or maybe you want to binge a new show together, but you want to do things where you're enjoying each other's company outside of the normal day-to-day responsibilities we carry in running a home. I think it's also a great time to kind of learn more about each other, maybe share memories that you haven't from your childhood or adolescence that your spouse doesn't know about, or even quiz each other. Hey, what are my top 5 movies? Getting to know each other and establishing that friendship and that intimacy that brought us together initially into a relationship will only strengthen our relationship. My parents have been married for 40 years, and I think they're constantly still learning new things about each other. So regardless if you're new in your relationship or you've been together for decades, we can continually to get to know each other better. And that leads me into my third point, which would be you want to manage conflict well. Now, this is true in quarantine or not, that you will experience conflict in your relationships. So it's not necessarily about solving that problem, but rather managing that conflict well, learning how to speak your point of view with using I statements and speaking calmly, or learning to listen to your partner. What are their concerns? I think also when we have conflict, we get very emotional. Our brains and our bodies get flooded with emotions, and that causes the prefrontal cortex of our brain, which is right up here at the top of your head. It controls reasoning and logic. It causes it to shut down. So learning to de-escalate our emotions, or saying, you know what, we're both really upset right now. Let's take a time out. Let's calm down and come back to this conversation at a later date. Learning skills to manage that conflict will allow us to communicate better and come to compromise at an easier rate than if we're just trying to scream through our emotions or, shutting down.
Let me ask you, because I know that, say for example, a friend of mine who's a family lawyer is saying that she's busy these days because of, like I said, family issues. What about therapists like yourself? Are you busier talking about these things with other people or doing virtual sessions like this one?
Yes, across the board. Myself, all of my colleagues, we're finding ourselves really inundated with new concerns, new clients. And it spans the spectrum of age and development. I've had a lot of teenagers reaching out to me. They're feeling more depressed. We've actually seen across the nation a rise in suicidality and self-harm, which is very concerning for our young people. And then for couples, we've seen a lot of couples reaching out to therapists seeking couples therapy, largely because of this issue of managing conflict and then being stuck together all the time. That usually we might work outside the home, or we might go places where we have time away from each other, and we're kind of on top of each other at all times these days, and that it gets burdensome, and we feel a little burnt out. So trying to find ways to use those coping skills to calm ourselves down and to find meaningful connections with our loved ones.
In some cultures, asking for help, talking to a therapist is a no-no.
That in more Western cultures, it's very accepted and normal, if you will, to go into mental health therapy. But in other cultures, that's not true. So, whatever your cultural background is finding that right person to ask for help, whether it is a relative or it's maybe a mental health trained professional, to know those warning signs of, I'm not able to manage this on my own right now. I need help. I need guidance, whether it's wisdom from your elders or it's wisdom from a trained professional, to find that support that we need and that guidance when we don't know what to do.
And let me just say, unsolicited advice for all the parents that are watching or couples that are watching, before maybe talking to your family lawyer, maybe try to seek counseling first and see how you can work things out, especially for those with children. And speaking of children, we are in this situation, Cara, for parents that are losing it. Because children, we have children, 1-year-old son and a 4-year-old daughter. That's what we're going to be talking about, correct?
Yes, that's up next.
When we return on the show, how mental health tips for parents and how to take care of your children's mental health for those with children that are aged 0 up to 5 years old. That's when we return. Don't go away. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, which is very critical, especially in this day and age as we fight a global pandemic. A lot of people have suffered loss, are grieving, maybe death of loved ones, maybe they have been ill or family and friends have been ill, so they're worried about that, especially for parents with children. And that's why we are talking about that today. Right about now on the show, Cara is once again joining us still. Now this time specific to parents with very young children, like myself, my husband, a 1-year-old son and a 4-year-old daughter. Sometimes we forget that these children have their own sets of feelings already and own sets of perception about things. Why is it important to take care of their mental health as well?
In some ways, life is pretty simple for our young ones, but it's also, there's a lot of brain development. There's a lot of just body development that's going on during that time. And when they're so young, we can't really explain the quarantine. They can't understand. We're going to see them act out in different ways. My first tip is this. It's really important during this time of quarantine to stick to that routine a little even more rigidly, I would say. And the reason is this. Because the young children cannot understand what's going on with the quarantine, they need things in their life that will make them feel safe and normal. And routines for young children, including babies and even our 4 to 5-year-olds, it makes them feel safe. They know what to expect. That if I say to my 2-year-old, okay, it's time to go night-night, he says, brush teeth. Like, he knows the process. And it makes them feel like they have a sense of control.
But what to do for parents that are very busy, maybe working at home and having to work all the time, also having to deal with the stress of maybe losing a job or additional work plus household chores. Do you have any tips for them?
So there might be some recalibration of our routine, what that looks like, but we want to continue the development of our young children, 0 to 5. And what I mean by that is that during that time frame, they're learning a lot. They're learning how to use their bodies, gross motor skills, and they're learning fine motor skills. They're being exposed to colors, to language, to numbers. I think that we want to offer opportunities to do that. And there's really creative resources out there to do that. That there's all sorts of educational platforms that have free resources out there for young children. And right now, we can't take them to the park. So finding ways to do that in our home, you could make a obstacle course and just reminding them, children really learn through repetition of, okay, why you can't see your friends, because we're trying to keep everyone safe and healthy, and even like I mentioned in the first segment, instilling hope in our children, saying, you know what, it won't be like this forever. We will get to see your friends at some point and we'll plan, make plans, or we're going to go to the park or whatever that looks like. Point number 3, offer your children extra cuddles. When a child feels attached to their primary caregiver, their mom mom, their dad, whoever it is, they feel safer. And so I know that, even in my family, we're super busy, but finding times to give an extra cuddle, to make eye contact regularly, to let them know that you're here with them, that will make them feel more attached, and then they'll feel safer, and you'll see a decrease in their emotional outbursts.
For children that are throwing tantrums, what should parents do?
And tantrums are an age-old question. You'll find all sorts of wisdom out there on what to do and what not to do. But the biggest thing I would say about a tantrum is for the parent to understand that the child is having a big emotional reaction to something. I think that's really important as a parent to have that perspective that my kid is struggling. So what am I going to do to help them through that? And I think two things. One, you want to help them go through that emotion. So it's actually better to kind of sit with them and say, hey, I know you're upset. I'm here with you. Right. You're not saying it's okay that they're throwing a tantrum. You're just saying, I'm here with you. Right. And then the second thing would be to figure out, well, what caused the tantrum? Are they tired? Are they hungry? To really figure out what the source of it is so you can address that, right? If it's a behavioral issue, then yes, we want to correct the behavior. But sometimes they're throwing tantrums because they're tired or they're hungry, or maybe they're just confused, they don't understand. Once they calm down, we can address the source of the tantrum to try and, eradicate that from happening again.
Your thoughts on gadgets at this time?
I think there's a huge temptation to just put our kids in front of screens. I'm guilty of this too, because it makes it really easy for us parents. My biggest thing is you want to find balance. I don't think gadgets are evil. I don't think that they're bad. I think they have some value, but in too much, it really is detrimental to the children's development, their gross motor skills, their fine motor skills, their brain development. It even disrupts their sleep. So we want to find a balance to that. Ask what is good screen time versus what is bad screen time? And how can I make sure that I'm giving my child good screen time and not just kind of filling their mind with senseless entertainment?
I also noticed with my 4-year-old that when we start the day, maybe she's having breakfast, and after breakfast she wants to do, because I normally do circle time with them, but then when she says, oh, I want to watch, and sometimes, I have stuff to do, okay, watch. I noticed that when she starts her day with screen time, it just affects her mood. She's whinier. She's is more difficult to please. So now I do it during the afternoon, after lunch maybe. I know that you're going to be expounding on that for our segment 4 now, which is top 3 mental health tip for parents to take care or who take care of their children that are aged 6 to 12. That's when we return on the show. Don't go away. Keeping this short today on the show, it's a full show on mental health, giving you helpful tools depending on at what stage of life you're in, whether you are by yourself quarantining with a significant other, with a husband or a wife, also whether you are parent quarantining with children. Earlier we gave tips on how to take care of the mental health of your children aged 0 to 5. They do need us as well, even though they're like babies. Now we're going to talk about this, taking care of older school-aged children. What is your number 1 tip?
I think our children, they have such different needs. 0 to 5 and 6 to 12 are two completely different, while they're both children, different developmental stages. I encourage parents of 6 to 12-year-olds to have a schedule, both when they have school and when they don't. I know a lot of schools are coming to an end. My own children, I have a 1st and a 2nd grader. Their school is ending in about 3 weeks. Having a schedule is really helpful for children to structure their day. So, and you can make it however it works for your family, but having time that they do their schoolwork, and if they don't have school that day, maybe have some sort of educational opportunity, reading books, or there's virtual field trips that kids can go on, something to enrich their intellect. And then having times for brain breaks that I would call, even in the middle of schoolwork, that our young children, their attention span is pretty short and we don't want to overload them. So making sure that you intersperse a brain break in there, and that could be a quick 10 jumping jacks, or you could go for a short walk, getting some sunlight and some exercise is really helpful. Scheduling times for lunch, for meals. In my own home, I actually wrote out a schedule that starts from when they get up to when they go to bed, and I posted it on the wall so that we all kind of know the movement of our day. And I even accounted for times where my husband and I have to work, because we're both working from home at this time. I think for the family to kind of know what to expect for the day, that keeps us busy, it keeps us engaged. And it prevents us from just sitting idly and kind of doing nothing during the day.
How much leeway do you give your children in terms of having them lead? Or you're noticing that maybe the 2-year-old or the first grader are not keen so much on learning?
If I notice, they're really out of sorts today, they're having a tough time, that I'm going to stop whatever we're doing, and if my schedule will allow, to offer those extra cuddles, to maybe do an activity to build our relationship, to make the child feel connected, safe. Second tip I have is, while we're home, we have extra time to build relationships with our kids. Make sure you're connecting with them, outside of, like I said, with the couples. Don't be just a transaction, make it relational. So go plant a garden, go on a walk. If your child loves to play baseball, go play catch with them. I heard a great story of this adolescent. He plays basketball, and his dad was always traveling and away, but right now his dad's home, so his dad's playing basketball with him, and it's creating great memories. And much like with our babies, when our children feel attached to their parents, they feel safer, they feel more secure, and you're going to see a decrease in emotional outbursts. So spend time building those relationships with your kids, whatever those passions your children, whatever those passions are that they have.
Love it, love it. We should be making time for our kids anyway, especially now more than ever. Number 3.
So we want to be very cognizant of how much screen time does my child have. The American Academy of Pediatricians actually revised their standards for screen time. They used to say that for this age group, they don't want more than 2 hours a day. It's really strict to adhere to that, though, because technology is infused into our lifestyle now. So it isn't so much about you have to stick to the 2 hours. It's rather make sure that it's quality, good screen time that they're having, that it's educational, that it makes them feel connected to their peers or to the community at large, that as opposed to just sitting and playing video games. And it's not that video games are bad, but you want to make sure that it's balanced. I think another tip with screens is once they've completed any educational activities, encourage your children to earn screen time, whether it's doing chores or accomplishing some task, that have their buy-in to be a part of this process of, if you want to play this video game for 30 minutes, I need you to do this. This is an age group where you want them to be a part of that process of understanding that screen time can be good, but screen time can also hurt our brains. And so we want to make sure that we're using screen time well.
At what point do you recommend to parents to have their child at this age speak to a professional?
1, if they're not themselves. 2, if you find disruptions in their eating or sleeping schedules. And then 3, if they really are having a hard time really containing their emotion. If you're seeing a pattern of intense emotional outbursts where it's happening on a daily basis, then I would really encourage parents, even if it's for your own as a parent, to get support from a trained professional. A lot of times I'll work with just the parents to really empower them to deal with the children's behavior. It can be really helpful to get that outside perspective.
I love it. This last 30 minutes has been a very, very informative and very helpful for a lot of people out there, depending on, like I said earlier, what stage you're in. But speaking of screen time, we are continuing this conversation on YouTube. www.youtube.com/sojanelle. We still have to talk about for parents to take care of mental health tips for adolescents and parents of adolescents, and that is on YouTube. www.youtube.com/sojanelle, where we also, aside from posting extended versions of interviews, we also have our live premiere on Wednesday nights. That's 8 p.m. Pacific. That means it's 11 p.m. East Coast time and 11 a.m. even in Manila on Thursday mornings in Manila. If you want to join us, or if you have friends and family who don't have TFC, make sure you tell them to catch us online. www.youtube.com/sojanelle. For now, Cara, thank you so much for this time and for all the informative advice, the helpful advice that you gave us. And thank you for joining us on the show. I hope you keep our TV dates next week, same time, same channel. For now, I'm your host, Janelle So, and this has been So Janelle.